Unscripted, your home for humanity-based tech journalism. It is a big day for anyone in the AR, XR community and really for consumers everywhere because Apple has just come out with a brand new product. Its very own headset-mounted display, as they call them in the industry. It is promising to be a potential game changer because when Apple comes out with a product, the adoption after new products tends to be really high, at least after a little bit of time, and they're known for sticking with their products. So joining us today to tell us what this new announcement means, what Vision Pro, what Apple has called its new headset, is all about, is the CEO and founder of Super Social and the host of Into the Metaverse, Jonathan Raz Friedman. Jan, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Priya. Thanks for having me. Really exciting day.
So I'm sure you were watching this this presentation this morning, and I was waiting and wondering, was it even going to come on before we started the show? And right before we started, the big announcement was made. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it's still going, by the way. Now they're in the kind of presentation of more of the background tech and the hardware and the software, which is, quite incredible. So look, I think my first reaction is, what a beautiful device. It looks beautiful. It looks like a lot of things we've seen before. It's a headset mounted on your head. As you said, everyone thought initially for many years that Apple will launch something that is more seamless into your everyday appearance, like glasses. So that's not happening, at least not in this version. May well be in future versions. And then also something that is pretty clear, and you can see the cable. There is a cable connected to a pack to power the device. Otherwise, it will get too hot too fast, which is also really interesting. And I'm just seeing the pricing now, real time, $3,499.
Ooh, even higher than we'd been hearing. We thought maybe $3,000.
Even higher. It's literally just appeared on the screen. Even higher. Everyone thought $3,500, which makes it by far the most expensive headset in the market. And so here is my initial reaction.
Make a quick note on that. Apple did say that they thought they would sell less than 1 million of these, right? So we're talking about a small amount in the Apple universe of units that they expect to ship this year.
Oh, I mean, it's a negligible amount of units. But I really, and here is kind of my bottom line, which is, this is clearly a long-term bet that Apple is making on the category. I am quite amazed by like the technical innovation that they brought on board. For example, the ability to essentially balance between being inside a VR and then open the goggles to allow you to essentially see those in front of you in real life, or even interact with content that is augmented in your space. So they really are introducing something that is almost like AR plus VR to some extent. However, with the battery pack that is connected, with the price point of $3,500, with all the incredible innovation, this is obviously a big bet in the category. It reminds me those big bets on computers 20, 25, 30 years ago, when really the only people who bought these devices 25, 30 years ago were enthusiasts, people who wanted to do things that are on the extreme of using technology, people who wanted to use it for work. And there was a whole session in the presentation about the Vision Pro for work and how can you use it in the office. And so it's obviously not going to be a mainstream product, definitely not at $3,500, but it is clearly a big bet. It is clearly a step change in terms of what it enables, but it also still shows an interface that is very much Windows and apps based. So I haven't seen how they have innovated on the interface like they have with the iPhone, taking us from a world of BlackBerry and scrolling on the cursor of the BlackBerry and still having a keyboard to a complete touch-enabled world with application, and really inventing a new app ecosystem and user interface. I don't see it with the Vision Pro. It still feels very much folder-based, apps-based, Windows-based. So I think I wouldn't say disappointing, because I don't know if people envision something else, because, hey, you need to create something new that never existed before. But I think what it does really well, it gets Apple into the category. As you said, people expect them to sell maybe thousands or a few 100,000 devices of these in the first year. Maybe they'll sell more because it's Apple, but this is clearly a first step in a, I would say, decade plus long journey into really building spatial computing devices that are around us, that are also way more seamless than a headset with a battery pack.
One point about what you're saying, that there doesn't seem to be something new in terms of the experience once you put it on. It's sort of like being inside an iPhone, maybe, is that I feel like Apple has in the past been slow to roll out some of the sort of operating system changes that it might want to see. Like the home button, famously for many years, they kept a home button there, even though they didn't really need it, to train people that when they took it away, here's where you're going to use, the functionality of it. You'll swipe from here. So some of that, I think, is this crossover into just a new type of device altogether, while bringing along the familiarity of the products they know. Jan, I'm very curious about your thoughts with their announcement of their partnership with Disney, because Disney had shut down its sort of metaverse division some time ago. And we wondered if that spelled the end for that sort of 3D immersive storytelling. Do you think that that was just part of this announcement, that there was a new partnership in the works?
Look, it's one of the things that we talked on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, that Disney is most likely going to be one of their partners. And here's another interesting thing that I'm noticing. This is a device that gives us content from on our face. This is really a device-centric ecosystem of content. And I think when we're talking about the other piece that is happening with quote unquote metaverse, virtual world, representing ourselves as 3D, that are immersed in these 3D environment as an avatar, I think that is probably going to come from the content creators. I can see how Roblox very naturally will integrate themselves into the Vision Pro as an app at some point, right? I have no idea if that's happening, but I think it will happen at some point. But I think what we're going to see is probably a very wide array of content, some of which we'll access in first-person mode, meaning we're really looking into the content, potentially even just watching content and swiping left and right content, very similar to what we're doing on the smartphone, just doing it in a 3D environment. And I think we're definitely going to see more content where the avatar represents us, and I expect that to be in gaming platforms and other social media applications, potentially even in enterprise application, where you want to represent yourself as an avatar that is doing a presentation to your executive team, or you're doing a public engagement, speaking engagement, and so on and so forth. And so I think what really, and this is actually to Apple's advantage, the innovation in content is not going to come from Apple. The innovation is content will come from the developers. Apple has always been the best at giving the tools and the devices and the seamless integration of software, content, and hardware, and allowing the developers to build the next generation. All of the innovation we've seen in the iPhone era comes from developers. Uber, Airbnb, payments, gaming, augmented reality is like Pokemon Go. All of those can come from Apple. So I think we are really going to see a lot of experiments, a lot of it. Obviously, accessible in only people who get themselves to $1,000. But really in Vision Pro from as it would be in the Apple case.
Jan, unfortunately, I'm losing a little bit of what you're saying. Do you want to try taking out your headphones, and let's see if you just speak directly into the phone, if that makes it a little cleaner? Let's give it a try. All right. Can you hear me? Oh, we're going to take a minute here. Bear with us, folks.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thanks. So, Jan, I did have a question about privacy. So when it comes, Apple is, sort of made their stance famously when it comes to privacy and privacy features. When you see them talking about the headset, there are little gestures that you can make with your fingers. Your voice can activate some of the information. There are sensors inside that are watching your eyes and doing eye tracking for you. What are you thinking about privacy concerns? What happens with all of this data that Apple then collects?
Look, I think this is always going to be a question when we have technology surrounding our bodies and minds and have access to all of our sensory capabilities. To be honest, I think the principle needs to remain the same, which is the same as what we have today. I think Apple overall has been a champion of relatively solid privacy principles. Of course, they have all the data. The fact that they are not providing the data to third parties for advertising purposes, that makes me feel more comfortable than, say, using an open source, hardware platform where my data could potentially be used for advertisers. And so I think historically, we're not looking at a company that monetized user data as a business model in the form of advertising. This may well change, let's see. But I don't think historically that has been a core to the Apple business model. So at the end of the day, the choice that we have as users, either we're going to have it and trust Apple to not sell our data to third party, or we'll vote with our legs and put our money in a different device. But to be honest, looking at who the other companies, I'm not sure at the moment there's anyone that is better than Apple or safer than Apple when it comes to controlling data and privacy.
Does this move by Apple at all sort of vindicate Mark Zuckerberg's step into changing his company's name to Meta, into coming out with the Meta Quest 2? Does this step by Apple say, okay, see, there is a game change happening in the industry? It's not just Facebook trying to be relevant in a new generation.
I mean, I think it's probably a very bittersweet day for Mark Zuckerberg. On the bitter side, it cannot be fun to see Apple launching something that is on every front seems like a step change from the Oculus ecosystem of products. It's also probably not fun to see many people who are going to go and purchase the Vision Pro, even though it's 5-6 times more expensive. So all of those things, I'm sure, are not fun for Mark Zuckerberg at the moment. However, on the sweet side, it is definitely validating that he had invested billions of dollars and continued to invest billions of dollars. And now he can say to investors, guys, the greatest company, the biggest company, the wealthiest company in the world is going all in on the category. Now it's not just me telling you we're messing around. Now this is about inventing and building the future of personal computing. And we have to stay in the game and continue to invest heavily. And I think this is going to be a really exciting frontier to see how these two different strategies will play out. And obviously, Apple has a complete control, I believe, in consumer technology from a device perspective. Facebook is not really a player in the wider ecosystem of personal computing aside of Oculus. And so I don't think they necessarily will have what it takes to compete against Apple unless they are really able to persuade consumers that they build an app ecosystem around their personal computing devices with VR that ultimately will also have great content because of their lower price point, right? They just released a new headset for $500, $600, which is considerably cheaper than the Vision Pro. However, Vision Pro is called Vision Pro, which means that there's going to be a Vision regular, right? And that's gonna come in the next 2, 3, 5 years, whenever it comes. Apple will start building versions of it that will make it more accessible to the wider audience. And let's not forget that when they launched $600 iPhone, in 2008, 2009, everyone thought they're crazy. So here they are again with a super expensive personal computer in the form of a headset. And I'm not going to bet against them, but I definitely think that this is validating for Mark Zuckerberg and the effort they have at Meta.
What about you, Jan? Are you running out to buy one as soon as you can?
I'm going to pre-order as soon as I can because this is obviously going to be a monumental experience to experience first, and also see how can it really impact the type of consumer experiences that we're building in Super Social, either if it's on platforms like Roblox or other platforms, because I think Apple has now released a product. No one is going to stay silent about it, even though I do expect things will take a bit of time until they pick up in terms of the app ecosystem and the content innovation that we're seeing.
I think this certainly lowers the barrier of entry for many people because Apple does have these beautiful retail stores that people are very comfortable and familiar with popping into, stopping by, touching all of the new gadgets, checking out a new watch wristband. So this will be an easy element to at least start having the average consumer be familiar with this new product, whether or not they're actually willing to purchase it and use it at home. So I think it does bring down the barrier of entry for people, but I still think it's a hard sell for your average consumer to understand the daily usefulness of this beyond the wow, gee, shiny new object syndrome. The average person to buy this and to come home and then to solitarily watch a video or to get into a workspace and answer their phone or do messages or even FaceTime. I find that the technology is still bulky and awkward, and it's hard to work into your daily life, unlike a phone that is so easy to take around with you.
Yeah, I subscribe to that. It's almost like, hey, let's sit as a family and watch Disney Plus on Apple TV, for which we're paying $10, and a lot of people don't. Oh, how about we replace that with a $3,500 device and go watch there, not together.
Right.
So
the corporate experience is lost right now. Although you could have it potentially with those who are farther away. So
sure, but that's not 7 billion people around the world.
Right.
And I also think that everyone is going to make a big fuss about Disney Plus is going to be available on Vision Pro at launch. This is not what's going to sell 100 million devices. I think that's why this is a long-term bet. This is most likely going to be one of the most expensive product that they will launch in this category. I don't think it's going to be the least expensive. I think they're going to be in the future probably product as expensive and maybe even more expensive. But this is definitely not the product that is going to bring mixed reality to the first billion people in the world.
Right. All right. Jonathan Raz-Fridman with Super Social and Into the Metaverse. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And everybody come on back tomorrow. Raphael Timmons will be your host here on GatherVerse News Unscripted at noon. As always, to catch up on past episodes, you can visit GatherVerseNews.org. And you can also go online and check out the little box for submissions. We would love to hear from you. What do you want us to cover? Who would you like us to talk to? Send us your suggestions so we can put them into the hopper. Have a great day. Go check out that headset. Bye.